Hey guys, we'll finally talk about the new Blood Angels book, and believe me, there's a lot to unpack here, so without further ado, let's dive right in. As tradition of the series dictates, we're first going to talk about the strength of the new CODEX supplement. I'm gonna surprise anyone by saying that Blood Angels are Space Marines, so the wealth of the Space Marine units and the synergies that are brought along with those units is at your disposal when you're using them. The most efficient vanilla Space Marine units that we have in the original Space Marine Codex can be combined with our unique stuff to form the most potent amalgamations. We have 3 detachments in the supplement that we're going to be able to use, and we're going to talk about each of them individually in this video. And of course, we still have access to the original detachments from the Space Marine Codex, but I don't think you are going to need them, even though Gladius is still very, very good. Each of the detachments now finally features Advance and Charge, which was a problem of the Sons of Sanguinary before. It did not have that, so in my opinion, always lost competition to the Gladius. Here now we don't have this problem, so you can freely choose any which one that serves your list best, and again we're going to discuss that in the video. Blood Angels have one of the best selections of named characters, and in my opinion even better now than the Space Wolves, because the Space Wolves have a lot of them, but I would not say that you really want to use multiple of the named characters. Maybe like Bjorn and Ragnar are really good. You might go for a couple more, but I would say that the best, most efficient named characters title would go to Blood Angels currently. We'll see what happens when the Space Wolves get their codex. Are so good, and considering the old ones, the really old ones, the Finecast ones are gone now, it's really tempting to just use all of the named characters. I found myself just adding all of them into the list when I was theory crafting, and I really did not feel like I'm doing something wrong. We also have the most jump pack units available in this book, which resonates really well with the army theme and overall aesthetic, and really plays wonderfully on the tabletop because of how important mobility is in 40k. It's a general archetype of a fast melee army is a really strong one in the Warhammer, and always was in general. As always, I want to remind you about my Patreon 40k coaching service. If you're looking for help building your competitive rosters, preparing you for tournaments, or have any questions about your collection in general, check out the links for my Patreon in the description. Thank you. Now about the weaknesses. There are not many of them to talk about, to be frank, and the weaknesses that we have mostly can be fixed by how you combine your roster. What I would mention is probably the lack of a stratagem-based reactive move, which is something that I really like to have, especially after playing so many games with my Grey Knights. I'm really used to being able to Mists of Daimos every time something bad happens and my unit is too close to danger. The reactive move we have available here is in the Angelic Host detachment, and it's an enhancement, unfortunately, so not as easy to utilize. Only have one way to get fights first in this army, I mean on normal units, not the ones that already have it, which is the Liberator Assault Group detachment, and it has the Fight First enhancement, so again, not a stratagem, but to be honest, Fight First as an ability is not really that common, so I cannot hold it against this detachment. Plus, Sanguinary and Mephiston, our great lone-up characters, have Fight First inbuilt. None of the detachments really buff shooting in any way. You could say probably Angelic Host buffs shooting for your jump back units like Inceptors and Suppressors by giving them ability, but I'd say that's a really long shot. I'm talking about damage output mostly here, and we're not buffing the shooting damage output. But to be honest, we're not really expecting this from a Blood Angels book, and I don't think you really need it, because you're not going to invest more than, say, 70% of your army into shooting, 30% of your army into shooting anyway. 70% of it is going to be melee, and having stratagems like space in your detachment wasted on the things that are shooting related is probably going to be a waste anyways, and a distraction for you. So I don't think this is a disadvantage, especially considering, and we'll see that in the army composition section, that there are a lot of Space Marine units that don't really need extra assistance from the detachment. They will work pretty well on their own. Now about the detachments themselves. So 3 of them are Liberator Assault Group, the Angelic Host, and the Lost Brethren. So first one is the Liberator Assault Group LAG, and it's the most universal one. I'm not gonna lie, this one is the one I like the most, even though I do appreciate the mobile second one, which again we'll talk about in a second. But personally, this one just feels so balanced, so easy to understand how exactly it's going to impact your list, that I will say that I think this one is the best. gives your army, the whole army, +1 attack and +2 strength on the charge. So everything, any unit that you send out, any character blown up or character in the unit, any like assault intercessor, for example, goes up to strength 6 on the charge for his chainsword and has 5 attacks. And that is huge difference. The +2 strength sometimes will be even better than having +1 to wound. It will very often be like +1 to wound, but for some occasions, it will be as if you had +2 to wound, which is impossible in the game currently, as the rules are. Because, for example, you are strength 4 and you are attacking something that is toughness 5. So with +1 strength, you would get essentially the same as +1 to wound, which is wounding on 4s. And with +2 strength, you would go over that and be wounding on 3s. So as if you had +2 to wound. And that is amazingly powerful. All the great strats here are 1 CP. So we have 1 CP, advance and charge and shoot. You can only choose both if you decide to suffer battle shock on the affected unit. And in many situations in the game, it might not really matter if your unit is battle shocked or not, especially considering that it's going to unbattle shock eventually anyways. And you can get advance and charge and shoot on the one unit. The same goes for fallback, charge and shoot. You can either choose fallback, charge or fallback, shoot, or if you want both, you'll have to take battle shock on that unit. Same goes for 1 CP lance on lethals. You can get either lance or lethals, or if you want, you can get both, but you guessed it, you get battle shocked. I really like the thematic aspect of this is when the unit gets so overwhelmed with red rampage and it just goes totally bananas on you, and it is not really good for doing actions or holding objectives anymore, but it gets really damn lethal for your opponents. All enhancements in this one are pretty good, and I really like the 25 points one that gives the unit that the leader fights first, so he grants that to his unit. It's amazing, and if you're gonna run any normal not named characters, this one should be in your list. I also really like the 10 points one that gives you a one-off sustain 3 for your melee weapons, so it's just perfect for a captain who also has the once per game devastating wounds and +3 attacks ability. So if you can combine these two, well, you'll see that in the synergy section at the end of the video. And the one that is 20 points for forcing desperate escape tests on anything that falls back from your unit is also just really, really good. It feels like they are trying to compensate the fact that we really want to run a lot of named characters, so we won't have access to many slots to put the enhancements on. So they're really motivating us to have at least some generic characters to put these amazing enhancements on them. Now the next detachment, it's the Angelic Host. I also like this one. I think it's pretty good, and you can build a very powerful list with this one, so don't think that you must positively only run Liberator. I just think it's the easier option. This one is the most mobile one, so you get the cut down version of the Grey Knights rule. Grey Knights, for those of you who don't know it, they get the ability to pick up to 3 of their units for a strike force, so 2,000 points a list, up to 3 of their units that are not in engagement range of your opponent, of their opponent, and pick them up and put them in deep strike. And essentially you can re-deep strike them again next turn. This is the same rule, but you get 2 units for 2,000 points instead of 3, which is still not bad, but I don't really know why they decided to do it like this here, because I feel like it would not be break the game if it was 3 units, and considering how strong competition is from Liberator Assault Group, I think this will be correct. But in any case, it's still a really powerful rule, allowing your units to get amazing mobility, considering that this is only for jump pack units, so those units are already 12-inch moving, so being able to just teleport across the board is going to make their mobility just amazing. The other way to look at this is a bit more pessimistic, is that your unit is already fast, so getting teleportation on something that can just maybe move 12 inches and then advance like 3 or 4, so you're moving 17 inches. It's not often that you actually need to teleport instead. So this is up for debate whether this is really that powerful on jump pack units or not. I would say it's still really good to have this ability, because sometimes you need to cross 30, 40 inches instead of those 17 that you can maybe make with your move and advance. Best strats here are 1 CP, 3-inch dip strike. I really love this. It's perfect to mess up your opponent's plans. It's perfect when you have, for example, removed for your melee unit from the board and your opponent is really good at screening out your stuff, so you want to take this melee unit and send it right into your opponent's flanks, and they will not be able to fight this turn. However, your opponent will have to deal with them in their next turn, otherwise they risk having this unit essentially create problems for them. Again, problem with this one is that this is a rule that is perfect for something like Terminators that otherwise are not really that quick, where your jump packers, they already move 12 inches, so chances are it might have been more useful for you to just maybe move and advance, considering again this detachment has access to advance and charge. So I will need to play this one to really say how powerful this is, but in general 3-inch dip strike is powerful. 1 CP, full advance, and fall back and charge and shoot, so this one is better than the one in Liberator Assault Group because it just gives you full everything, whatever you want you can do without any restrictions. CP, full reroll to hit and wound for your Sanguinary Guard against any enemy unit that killed any of your Blood Angels units. So this one is the only enhancement, apart from Armor of Contempt obviously, that works for non-jump pack units. So say you're running Gladiator Lancers in your Angelic Host list and the Lancer was killed by an enemy unit, then your Sanguinary Guard will, if you spend a CP, get full rerolls to hit and wound against that unit for the entire game. As you understand, they are really motivating us to run 18 Sanguinary Guard because this one is a very powerful stratagem, and being able to just keep tagging units with this reroll, full rerolls to hit and wound for all of your remaining Sanguinary Guard on board is really powerful. Because there's no restriction on how many times you can use the stratagem in the game, and you can use it in any phase. So at the end of the game, chances are you can have like 3 or 4 enemy units that you have full rerolls to wound against, and if those units are really tough, it may take you several turns to get through the entire unit, so you will get full efficiency from this. You also get a really strong 1 CP lethals and precision stratagem for your jump pack units. It just gives you both lethal and precision, which is an interesting combination, but still it's powerful to have, and a great 1 CP strat. Best enhancements are 25 points reactive move 1, which is the one I mentioned before. And it just, whenever something moves within 9 inches, you get to move 6 inches normally from that, or 2 that, depending on what you want. There's a good 15 points one that just pings Battle Shock for everyone that is within engagement range of the bearer in the Battle Shock phase of your opponent's turn. So it really can mess up their plans. It's like a small Tyranids ability where Tyranids do this for the entire army or everywhere in the battlefield, and this one is just precisely where this very scary character is. And lastly, the Artisan of War. So this one is also pretty good. It gives you 2+ save for your captain or whoever you want, and also gives you extra AP on all of your weapons, including the shooting ones. And lastly, the Lost Brethren detachment. So this one is the most deathly one, and by deathly I mean it has everything that it does has to do with death somehow. Just for example, because it only affects Death Company with all of the stratagems, so not even like the Angelic Host. Here, everything is related to Death Company. And your rule is you get reroll ones to wound in melee for Death Company, and you get full rerolls to wound if your unit is below half strength. So it's powerful. Reroll ones to wound is always great to have, and you're going to have a lot of ones considering the volume of attacks you get on the Death Company. And obviously full reroll to wound is very powerful. However, I don't like the rules that make you die first to get the ability, because it tends to be difficult to use them, as your opponents, when they start killing your unit, they often finish the job and you might not get the chance to utilize it, but it's still not bad to have. The fact that those stratagems are Death Company related makes it pretty hard to write lists for this one, so I would not recommend it unless you just have a huge collection of Death Company units and dreadnoughts and everything, considering that the Furioso dreadnought, not the Furio, Death Company dread is no longer the same model as it was. I find it unlikely that you have like 3 Brutalis that you've already converted into Death Company. So again, a very difficult one to really comment on. If you are a fan of Death Company, it's a very thematic one, but I'm not gonna lie, in my humble opinion, it will always lose to the Liberator Assault Group, just plain flat. It's not even a comparison. The best threats here are 1 CP die and OPSEC, what I call die and OPSEC, which is essentially when your unit dies on an objective for 1 CP, you get to sticky it before they essentially depart from this material plane. 1 CP advance and charge and shoot. This one has a limitation that you can only do both if the chaplain, any chaplain is within 12 inches. Same goes for 1 CP fight on death. Again, you get to do it on 3s only if a chaplain is nearby, and it's on 4s otherwise. 1 CP plus 1 attack, strength, and AP for your below starting strength unit. And this one has penalties. It makes your weapons hazardous if, again, chaplain is not close by. And lastly, 1 CP 6-inch pile-in into engagement range, and it again has limitation that it's only 6 inches when a chaplain is nearby. If not, it's less. The enhancements in this one did not stand out to me. They are not bad, but none of them are really that interesting. Like maybe the one that allows your character to stand back up from death is not bad, but again, I don't feel like any of them are mandatory. Next is army composition. So my favorite segment in any of these videos, because that's where we get to talk about how to actually build the list for this army. Any Blood Angels list that you are going to build with this book is likely going to focus on jump pack infantry, and that's a good thing because it would be strange not to, as you have an abundance of choice in this category of units and rules that actually back that choice up very well. I'm not saying Land Raider with elite infantry in it, or even non-elite infantry, or Impulsor with assault intercessors, which again I'm going to talk in the end in the synergy section, is a bad option here. I'm just saying that it's less needed compared to other Space Marine factions that don't have so many jump pack choices that are so good. Talking about that, Death Company with jump packs are still here. They are a different unit now because they don't get all Inferno Pistols and all Power Fists, and they are also cheaper, so it's easier to get them. They are 240 points compared to 280 points that they did cost before, and Limardes is also 10 points cheaper, so you get to save up on that. Obviously, I would probably still want the old Death Company if I could choose them, but they're not bad. They're going to do the job pretty well for you anyways. Considering that you now can stack +1 attack and +2 strength with advance and charge for them, I think they are stronger than they were before. Would still want to have at least one of these 10-man Death Company squads and probably lead them with either Limardes or Astorath. I would start with Limardes and then go to Astorath, and we'll discuss them in detail in the named characters section. Second option for your jump pack, Punch unit, and Punch means like a big unit that does a lot of damage, just for you viewers that have not seen my other videos, are Sanguinary Guards. So they are much more elite. They are 3 wound models and not 2 wound models with Film Pain. They have 2+ armor save, not 3+, and 4+ invulnerable save compared to no invulnerable save on the Death Company. And they have also -1 to hit and wound in melee. The -1 to wound is only when the character is leading them. So they are significantly more elite and significantly more expensive. 270 points for 6 compared to 240 points, as I said, for Death Company. They would last much longer though when you throw them at your opponent, especially if you can protect them from shooting, because if anyone needs to go into close combat with them, especially if you manage to get the character with fights first on this unit, with this unit, then they will be really tough to deal with. If you just throw them out in the open and they kill something and then get shot off the board, they are not that durable because it's essentially just a flying Terminator without even the toughness 5. But again, in combat, it's a totally different story. -1 to hit and -1 to wound may go a really long way, especially if you roll on those 4-ups pretty well. Next are jump pack intercessors, and you obviously knew that I'm gonna mention them because these guys are great for normal Space Marines, and for Blood Angels, they're just plain amazing. They are great both as a 5-man skirmish unit and a full 10-man unit. Even if you want, you can add a character to this one, and this is going to be a great place to add like a captain with that fights first relic from the Liberator group, or the relic for reactive move from the Angelic Host. With advance and charge and those extra attacks you get in the Liberator Assault group, they just fit like a glove into any Blood Angels list. Now, you know this video would not be my video if it did not advocate for a balanced list. And the balanced list, in my opinion, is the one that has both shooting and melee in a proper proportion. For some armies, there should be more shooting and less melee. For this one, in particular, this one needs more melee and less shooting, but still some shooting. Not going to go too deep here because we have a lot of top 5 videos that cover great options for shooting units, anti-tank units, so on, but there are some Space Marine options that are very much valid here. Gladiator Lancer, of course, you know, my favorite one, a very self-sufficient platform that is not that durable, but if you manage to use it properly and stay away from harm's way, then you will be able to use it multiple times in a game, and then it becomes really efficient because Lancer can really reliably delete a light tank platform every turn, and 2 of them almost guarantee it. Inceptors, for the same reason, they are self-sufficient, they get full rerolls to wound innately. With plasma, they can pretty well deal with small, light and medium tanks, and they can do damage against heavier tanks as well. You just have to finish them off in some fashion because a 6-man will not kill a really big tank by themselves. And they also don't have a problem with delivering their damage because of 3-inch dip strike rule. Eradicators and Hellblasters aren't bad either, though you don't get any buffs here like the Fire Discipline enhancements, so they're not nearly as good as they are in Gladius. Vindicators are also great tanks here, so if you just run 3 Vindicators, I don't think you need anything else to really help you with shooting. Especially considering that you can still use aggressive onslaught, which is the Liberator Assault Group at the stratagem for advance and shoot on the Vindicator, so you will be able to compensate their shorter range if necessary in a turn where you are not using the stratagem for charging. I'll talk about named lone op characters in a later segment of this video, but believe me, Blood Angels have the best ones in my humble opinion, and you want them in your lists. For chaff and home objective duty and skirmish duty, apart from the lone op characters, which again we're going to talk about in a second, would still rely heavily on the staples of the Space Marine book like the Scouts, Jump Back Intercessors, Assault Intercessors, and Furnace Marines, and Curses that I've talked about in my recent top 5 video of underrated Space Marines. Check this one out if you're interested, and etc. There are a lot of choices here, and the most popular ones are obviously Scouts and Jump Back Intercessors. Normal amount of them, which I'm going to recommend, is probably going to be 1 dedicated home unit and about 2 or 3 chaff skirmish units running around doing actions and taking objectives for you. So chaff and skirmish, just for those of you new viewers who don't know, chaff is a cheaper unit that mostly doesn't do anything else apart from like doing actions for you, so it should be at least OC1, or if it's OC0 you need to have a specific purpose for it because it's not going to be actions. And you're not really counting on this unit doing damage for you. This is mostly like just action monkey. Skirmish is a slightly different category. This is like a hybrid one. So you sometimes want this unit to charge your opponent's skirmish choices so that you can take away their resources for scoring. Or you can, when the situation calls for it, just use your skirmish units as chaff. So do actions, hold objectives, etc. depending on what's happening on the board. Perfect example for chaff is Scouts, for skirmish, Jump Back Intercessors is a 5-man version. And now as promised, the special characters. So first, Limardes. He's our 110 points named chaplain that helps lead our crazed death company into battle and make them much more efficient. I really like the fact that he's now a bit cheaper because he felt like a very big tax you had to pay for death company, and they were still worth it at that point, but considering they're not as damage dealing now as they were before with all power fists, I think this was a correct move by GW to make him a bit cheaper. So what he does is 2 things for your Death Company squad. -1 damage for them and lethal hits. Damage reduction on the 2 wound models is very valuable because it means that damage to guns that otherwise would just reap through that, or it's not only guns, it's also damage to melee, which is very abundant in 40k nowadays. It's not gonna be nearly as efficient against them, and considering there is a film of pain still, even damage 3 stuff is not guaranteed to kill a Death Company Marine. It will likely kill them, but not guaranteed. And lethal hits, of course, are great. You don't have to spend CP on getting them through a stratagem, and just having them, considering you have full rerolls to hit, is very good. And I really like the new Limardes model, even though I like the old one as well, but the new one is pretty cool. It's not like the Sanguinary. As you can see, I did not even change the old one, the old image, to the new one because I just don't like how he looks. By the way, tell me in the comment section if you like how the new Sanguinary looks. I'm really interested in hearing your opinion because I was just disappointed. Talking about Sanguinary, so he is our lone up character. 12-inch move, fly. He can turn up from reserves into combat once per game whenever the Blood Angels are charged, and having fights first and 8 attacks at strength 6 AP3 damage too with devastating wounds. It makes him a very big pain in the butt for your opponent, because essentially whenever they want to charge something in your army, they always have to take into consideration that they are going to eat 8 attacks of Sanguinary just because. Once per game obviously, but still it's very powerful. And once he uses his ability, he becomes a really powerful lone-up character that just runs around the board doing actions for you if you need to, but probably just advancing, charging into stuff, and being a nuisance for your opponent because he's a lone up, so it's really hard to shoot him. Plus, he is quite resilient with 2+ save, 4+ invulnerable save, and like, I think 7 wounds. Yep, 7 wounds, so he is really tough as well. Next is Astorath, so second option for a Death Company named character leader, provides the squad with permanent devastating wounds, so always active, and 4+ fight on death. By always active, I mean compared to what it was before, where it was once per game, it still only is active on the charge. It does not activate without it. But devastating wounds for Death Company with the volume of attacks they have is very powerful. However, I would still rank him below Liberator, even though he's 5 points cheaper, because his abilities are less impactful, in my opinion, than the Liberator's one. So. Though Astorath fights better, so he has 6 attacks of strength 7 AP3 damage too, and that's all of these attacks are base profile, so not with +2 strength and +1 on the charge that you could get. And his attacks have precision, so he is perfect to snipe out a character from a unit before your main squad just deals with everything else in that unit. I really like Astorath, and his new model is just amazing. We've actually painted up one for the channel, so you're gonna see him very soon in our battle reports. Mephiston, amazing lone up choice. He's probably my favorite glow up in this entire Blood Angels Codex, because before he was just a very sad named librarian that you never ran because you didn't really want to run like, I don't know, assault intercessors with him or something, because yeah, he used to give them fights first, but I don't know, just you can get that from Judiciary. You don't need Mephiston for this. But now he doesn't need a squad because he's a freaking Warhammer vampire, a Warhammer Space Marine vampire, which is pretty much as cool as you can be. And he has everything you ever wanted a lone up to have. He has fights first, has 4+ feel no pain, 4+ feel no pain, 2+ armor save, 5+ invulnerable save in case you get shot by Melta. You still have a pretty good chance of shrugging that off. He has toughness 5 for some reason, I don't know why, just he's tough. He got tougher from all the crap he went through when he was almost taken by the Black Rage. 6 wounds, so imagine 6 wounds with 4+ feel no pain and 2+ armor save. That's just amazing. He has a fallback stop mechanic, so whenever something wants to fall back from him, they need to take a test. I think it's a leadership test, and then if they fail it, they cannot fall back. So if there are multiple units that he's now engaging, they'll have to take multiple tests, and it means that there is a good chance that some of them is going to fail, and then they cannot fall back, and then you are essentially untouchable in combat. The fights first, Mephiston is untouchable in combat, so you'll be able to use him again and again and again, and he advances and charges as well, so he doesn't have a problem with mobility. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, he has a 7-inch move, because, again, he's a vampire, he's super freaking fast. 6 attacks at strength 9, AP3 damage, D3, so with the Liberator group, it's going to be strength 11, AP3 damage, D3, and 7 attacks with lethal hits. So as you can see, I'm really excited about this guy. He's going into every single list that I have, and even if they make him 160 points, he's still staying in my list. Oh, and I also forgot he has a pretty good pistol, and he has a psychic attack, so you can use either that or this. Next, Dante. Unfortunately, Dante is not as impressive compared to Mephiston. Still pretty good. I love the model, by the way, and I love the fact that he's on a 50mm base, which makes his presence much more visible. And what he gives his squad is +1 to hit and +1 to advance and charge. Before, I think it was just the charge, now it's both, which is a big deal, and it makes his squad faster and deadlier. He looks amazingly well with the Sanguinary Guard, even though I don't really like the look of the new Sanguinary Guard without the wings. But if you work a bit on them with bits and maybe like add wings to them, they are okay. Also swap the heads, because the heads are just not there, in my opinion. Dante also forces a battle shock test at -1 within 6 inches at the start of the fight phase, so he will sometimes screw up your opponent's plans if they want to use stratagems in the fight phase. And he cannot join Death Company, but he can join all the other important jump back units that you want to, jump back intercessors, Vanguard Vets, and of course Sanguinary Guard. He fights with 8 attacks, a strength 8, AP 3, damage 2 with lethal hits, so he's really good in the fight, and he costs 130 points. Is he a must-have? No. Is he pretty damn good? Yes. These synergy sections, so we have a couple of things that I want you to be aware of. The combo of Assault Intercessors with the Captain inside an Impulsor is just amazing in the Liberator Assault Group, in my humble opinion, because now, just as with Gladius, you can have the Captain walk out of the Impulsor with +3 because of this disembark, so walk 9 essentially, then advance however much you're gonna roll, and then charge. You still have this ability. However, you also have the +2 strength and +1 attack, so he is much more dangerous in that one go turn that he gets with his +3 attacks of Finest Hour ability and Devastating Wounds. And if he's running with Assault Intercessors, which he should, he will also be able to get full rerolls to wound, and with the Rage Fueled Warrior enhancement that only costs 10 points, so it's not going to really make this package any less affordable, he can do 13 wounds to a Toughness 12 2+ vehicle. That's with rerolls to hit from Oath and with rerolls to wound from the Assault Intercessors. Alone, 13 wounds from one model that costs 90 points with the enhancement. Just amazing. It reminds me of the good old days of the Smash Captains of the Blood Angels. Same goes for the Assault Intercessors in the Land Raider with Sanguinary Priest. This is still a valid combo, and the new Sanguinary Priest model is pretty damn cool. Unfortunately, we cannot run Sanguinary Priest on a jump back anymore, so he's not gonna run around with the jump back Intercessors, but I don't think this was really the combo to use all the time anyways, because I don't like the fact that he adds so much to the price tag of the jump back Intercessors, and one of the best things about them was how cheap they were. So Assault Intercessors, on the other hand, in the Land Raider, they are amazing. 50 attacks on the charge with strength 6, AP 2, and a pretty great threat range with 6-inch move, 3-inch disembark, and potential advance and charge. But you probably are going to just move the Land Raider 12 inches and then disembark, because why did you pay for the ramp otherwise? Blade Guard actually are not anemic in combat, finally, if you're gonna run them in the Liberator Assault Group at strength 7 and 5 attacks each. They are on the same level almost as a Custodian Guard or Warden. I probably should say Warden, because those don't get the rerolls to wound. They still don't fight on 2s, don't hit on 2s, but they get reroll 1s inbuilt, so it's almost the same as fighting on 2s. We all know Wardens are pretty dangerous in combat, so think of it as you will, but I think the Blade Guard are pretty nice in the new Blood Angels book, and they are a really cheap and efficient mid to late game piece that you should not try to use right away, but keeping them like hidden and doing actions for you, maybe like an expensive skirmish unit, and then at the end of the game, when so much damage has been done, there will be few opponents' units that can actually threaten these guys. And talking about the threat range, a cheaper option than a Land Raider would be a Repulsor. And if we take a squad of Sanguinary Guard with Dante, which are just our Tacticus Marines with jump packs, and they can be put in the Repulsor, you can have a very reliable turn 1 charge, because Dante gives them +1 to advance, +1 to charge. They have 12-inch move and 3-inch disembark, so that's 15 inches they have moved after disembarking. They will also have an advance, which let's say it's the maximum of 6, which would be a 7, and then add a 13-inch charge to that because of +1 from Dante, and that's how you get 35 inches of threat range. That's obviously maximum, so if you roll a 12 on the charge and you roll 6 on the advance, not really going to be this, most likely, but you can still project that threat this far, and realistically, like 26 or something inches is very doable with these guys. And you can use that Repulsor again, because you can just jump out with a Sanguinary Guard and at the same time jump in with I don't know, any shooting unit you want, like Hellblasters. And finally, a roster example for Liberator Assault Group detachment. So we have Chief Librarian Mephiston, we have Commander Dante as our Warlord, of course, Lamartis, a Lieutenant with a combi weapon, because I really love this guy, and I think for 70 points you just cannot get any better than him for doing actions and just being a really big pain in the butt for your opponent. The Sanguinor, of course, 3 units of 5 assault intercessors with jump packs, because these guys are really efficient even at 90 points that they cost now. I think this is just the correct price for them before they were undercosted severely. 10-man Death Company squad, 2 Gladiator Lancers, 2 Inceptor squads with plasmas, 3 men, and 6-man squad of Sanguinary Guard and a 5-man squad of scouts with a missile launcher. And that is a total of 2,000 points on the nose. So let me know what you think about the new Blood Angels book, guys. I really like it myself. I'm going to be running these guys for my competitive army in tournaments, and there's going to be a lot of content on the channel as well. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.